Hello racing fans, and welcome back to the third season of the AOR Pro Mazda Championship, and it's time for round 4 from Mid Ohio Sports Car Course. My name is Justin, and joining me today for commentary, it's the legend himself, FisiFan91.
Oh yeah, hello guys, hello Justin, very happy to be here. It's been a while since I've been in the commentary box for a type of race like this, but looking forward to giving it a try again, and if for the first 3 races of the season is anything to go by, then we're in for a cracker here today at Mid Ohio.
Yep, I'm pretty excited. This is the first of the non-F1 tracks, of course, that we're driving at this season. Last time out, it was Jamie Fluke who took the win after starting from second on the grid, while pole sitter Govan Keeney had to settle for 2 points in P19 after hitting the wall of champions. Joni Takanen got second place right behind Fluke, and Phil Reed took the final podium position after overtaking Teemu Valkjärvi on the final lap of the race. Keeney is still leading the championship, but Fluke's win puts him in second place and just 11 points behind Keeney. That's how things look heading into this weekend's festivities. Let's kick things off, starting with the qualifying report.
Here we are on the track at the Mid Ohio Sports Car Course, where the qualifying comparison laps return with a side-by-side comparison between the two Team AOR blue cars. Going into the very fast turn 1 now with the Season 1 champion Kerry Nolden on the left-hand side and his teammate Phil Reed on the right. Now on the straight, coming towards turn 2, going a little bit up the hill in the braking zone for this pretty long and slow right-hand turn, where it's actually very hard to find the right line, but the absolutely most crucial part of that corner is to get as early as possible on the throttle onto this long back straight, which is the longest straight on the track and probably the area where we'll see most side-by-side action and passing during the race. Keeping the car on the left hand side now, just waiting for that braking zone into turn 4, staying in third gear to carry a good amount of speed through the corner, and the two teammates are pretty much neck and neck after the first part of the lap. Down to second gear over the crest area, a pretty tricky corner of the car, can easily get unsettled over the bump, then up to third gear again for turn 6, before going into this very fast and twisty middle part of the lap, where having a stable car is absolutely vital. You can see Kerry having to correct a little bit of oversteer through the corner there, which is not going to help him, but he held it nicely. But it's Phil Reed at this point who's actually marginally ahead in this comparison battle as we go into the final few corners of the lap. Here a nearly blind fast left-hander, and then dropping down into the penultimate corner of the lap, where a lot of different lines can be taken, but crucial to hug the apex on the exit to get a good run through the final corner and onto the start-finish straight. And it's Kerry who's managed to find some time in the final few corners to take pole position with a 1 minute 20.6, his first pole of the season, less than a tenth of a second ahead of his teammate, who will start a race from third.
So it's the Season 1 champion Kerry Nolden who takes pole position ahead of the current championship leader Govan Keeney. Behind Keeney comes Phil Reed, Kerry Nolden's teammate. Starting from first and third, it's looking pretty good for AOR Team Blue. Season 2 champion Justin Brunner starts in 4th position, with the Montreal winner Jamie Fluke just behind him in 5th. Joni Takanen is in 6th, Godin in 7th, Berenson in 8th, Patrick White in 9th as the leading carbon racing car, and Yunus Puheka is down in 10th, rounding out the top 10 for Glacier Racing. Harley Lewis starts just 2 places behind his teammate in 11th for Carbon Racing. Ty McLeod starts in 12th. He's followed by the leading Team Tortoise car of Fredrik Johansson. Behind him comes Martinson as the leading car for AOR Red. Hugo Prado is in 15th position. I'm sure he's disappointed with that. And just behind him is Leanne Robinson. Kagerer Teemu Valkjärvi way down in 18th. Osterkamp and Mittner rounding out the top 20. And we've got a full grid of cars today. In 21st, we've got Robert Plumley for Conducci Racing. Just behind him is Stefan Bendow of the Bendow brothers. His brother starting just 2 places behind him in 24th. Daniel Baxter for ACR splitting them. Christoph Leister, Evan Imre, Neil Lukens, Vittorio Saltalamacchia, and Chris Robinson will round out the bottom 10. And Cedric Finsack had a technical issue that prevented him from getting to the grid. That's it for the qualifying report. Now it's time for the drivers to line up for this week's race. It's race time from the Mid Ohio Sports Car Course. We've got 28 drivers on the grid, and there is car number 28 starting from 28th position. That's Chris Robinson, and he'll be starting from the final corner pretty much, as it's a very short start-finish straight. There's Jean-Francois Godin, missed his home race in Montreal last time out. Jamie Fluke, the winner last time out in Montreal, is going to be starting today's race in 5th position. Justin Brunner, the Season 2 champion, starting in 4th position, and just ahead of him actually is Govan Keeney, but the two AOR blue cars of Kerry Nolden and Phil Reed will be starting from 1st and 3rd, and there is your Season 1 champion, Kerry Nolden, with that very short run down to turn 1. It's not a very long run at all, so it should be pretty easy for him to protect that inside line. We've got the red lights now. We're waiting for the green lights to come on. The engines are revving. The drivers are ready to go, and they're away. The lights are green, and it looks like a great start, actually, for Phil Reed. A pretty poor start for Govan Keeney. Second race in a row that Keeney has had a pretty tough start, and the two AOR blue cars come out of turn 1 with a 1-2. Keeney fighting back, though, around the outside. He's going to have the inside line as they're running down towards turn 2. Jamie Fluke, it looks like, as well, has made up a position from 5th place as they're going into that turn 2 hairpin now. Very difficult corner here, especially with the cold tires, and it does look like, no, he's not able to move up another position, so, no, Fluke has actually lost out, I apologize, and he's actually coming under attack from Joni Takinen here as we're making the run down towards turn 4. That little kink you see there, that is technically turn 3. Turn 4 is going to be the major overtaking location at this circuit, and they're heading into that corner now and filtering through pretty nicely. No major incidents as we've seen so far, but of course, as with previous videos, we might be seeing some incidents in the replays, possibly, but there is Kerry Nolden with a very comfortable lead, and Keeney actually has gotten back by Phil Reed, so it's no longer an AOR Blue 1-2 as it stands right now. Keeney back up into that second place position, and of course the current championship leader. Oh, and we do have a car off. Oh, there's a couple cars off, one on the left side, one on the right hand side as well. Like, I'm not sure who that was exactly, but
one of the Bendows, please.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, possibly one, maybe even both of the Bendows, possibly, but it does look like no major incidents. We certainly haven't seen. Oh no, and that's one of the Conducci racing cars. I'm not sure, is that Saltalamacchia? It is Saltalamacchia, and that's going to drop him right down into 28th position. So the only car that he's still ahead of right now is Evan Imre, who started from the pits.
Yeah, definitely, and very impressive first lap, I was going to say, until, of course, we had a few spinners and cars off the track towards the end of the lap. But no incidents at the start, good to see. Very impressive start, I got to say, from the AOR Blue cars, getting into 1-2, but at least very briefly, until Govan Keeney took it back into turn 2. And here we see a battle for 12th place now with Ty McLeod and Leanne Robinson. It looks like Leanne Robinson is going to go for a move up the inside into turn 4, the place you said was going to be prime for overtaking around here, and Robinson looks to have got that move done, and McLeod can hang it around the outside. It looks like he's trying actually, but he runs a little bit too wide and has to settle back into 13th place. And McLeod now has been put under pressure from Martins actually. He might even drop further down, and they're going side by side now through these corners. Martins is holding around the outside of what I believe is turn 9, and they're still side by side coming towards a very tricky final part of the lap. Who's going to come out ahead? I think Martins might be in the best position, as the next corner here is a left-hander, and he does indeed take that position. And McLeod dropping down as Pretos now looking to the outside of the penultimate corner. That is not the place where you usually see overtakes, and he actually forces himself ahead. Very impressive stuff from Hugo Preto, the Portuguese driver, moving himself up to 14th place.
Yeah, that was incredible stuff, and as you were saying, McLeod just really struggling there in the early stages of this race as he was going side by side with a number of drivers. Here we have Michael Mittner having a look at the leading Team Tortoise car as it stands right now, Frederick Johansson. Johansson braking pretty early, Mittner having a sniff up the inside through that turn 2 hairpin, and it does look like he's got the better traction as well, so he is going to take that position. Of course, Johansson is now going to have the slipstream from him if he needs it. It doesn't even look like he needs it, as Timo Valkjärvi is looking to possibly make a move on both of these cars. Valkjärvi, it seems to me at least, a little bit out of position in this race, starting further down the grid than he normally would. Johansson going around the outside of turn 4. Of course, he's going to have the inside line for turn 5. Very difficult to go around the outside of turn 5, as McLeod demonstrated not long ago. It's a very difficult corner to go around the outside of, and effectively is what probably caused him to drop down a number of positions. And in fact, not far ahead of Johansson is McLeod, so Mittner, I imagine, is going to be looking to get by Johansson here as quickly as he can and possibly start looking to overtake some more cars. But here is Kerry Nolden currently leading from Govankini at the moment, and we're starting lap 4 of this 44-lap race, and Phil Reed's still in 3rd position, and here we got a replay of the start. Go ahead and talk us through this, Fizzy.
Yeah, let's see. Obviously the main focus point here is Phil Reed starting from 3rd place, who gets an incredible launch, much better than the first two. Gets himself ahead of Govankini on the run into turn 1, but then he maybe is a little bit cautious on the brakes there, because he doesn't want to hit his teammate, obviously. And then Kini manages to hold it round the outside of turn 1 and get the inside line for turn 2, and obviously he gets back ahead. Interesting to note as well, Luke jumped Brunner into turn 1 as well, but then he ran really wide, as you can see here, through turn 2. Dropped that position back and almost got put under attack by Takkinen as well, but I do believe he held on to 5th in the end. And here we can actually see the onboard from Jamie Fluke, as we have Phil Reed as well, just ahead of this. You can see his incredible launch, and Fluke's as well. He got an equally incredible launch actually to get himself alongside Brunner. It actually looks like he was going to have a look at the 2nd place almost into turn 2, but ultimately Phil Reed left him well, no chance to attack really. Obviously Fluke kind of on the wrong side of the track to make a passing attempt there, and Brunner gets that position back. And here we now have a very interesting start from the corner, the final corner from Marco Bendo's view, and he also looks to have gotten a really good launch, following his teammate, of course, his brother in fact, Stefan Bendo, and he takes the outside into turn 1, very interesting, and he looks to be actually passing his teammate around the outside of turn 1, and he must have gained at least 5 positions there, I think.
Yeah, I think the outside line probably going to be the one to take in turn 1, just purely because the run down to turn 2 is so long. You really just want to carry as much speed as you can, rather than trying to gain the position at the inside of the corner. It might be better.
Look at this!
White makes a very late maneuver there. Nearly comes into contact with one of the Glacier cars. And here is the incident with the 2 Bendow brothers, actually.
Both of them at the same time.
You can tell they must be related, because they got very, very close, but there was no actual contact between them, unless we're seeing some sort of lag or something, but I don't think that is the case.
Very weird, actually. It looks like they both made kind of the same error at exactly the same time. It's almost comical, but obviously it's a very easy corner to make a mistake at, and obviously Steve K, we're doing well to also keep away from any contact there. So,
the last time I drove this circuit was in a DW12, and it was very, very tricky. I imagine it's not much easier to drive in these Star Mazdas here. Daniel Baxter, wow, way down in 24th position for ACR. I'm sure he's got to be pretty disappointed about that. And it looks like he's actually running up to the back of the AOR red car. That is actually, that's not Martin. So, yeah, that's Lukens, actually, who we haven't seen recently. Is this his first race of the season?
Yeah, it's actually his first race. He missed the first 2 races, equally as Christoph Leister as well, just to point that out, is also on the grid today, missed the first 3 races.
And Lukens is all over the back of Baxter right now as we're heading down towards turn 4. Baxter is going to defend the inside line. It's not a bad idea to try around the outside here. Lukens breaks a little bit later than Baxter. He's going to maybe try the switchback on him here, but as we were talking about before, so difficult to go around the outside of turn 5, but Lukens looks like he's actually pulled it off as they're coming out of the corner side by side into turn 6, and then they're going to be going into the S's. Mittner looks like he's going to also take advantage of the slowed ACR car. They're very, very close together. Very, very close proximity between these cars as they're coming over the hill now, through turn 9 and down towards through Thunder Valley is the name between turns 9 and 10, which is an amazing name. And here is the replay of Chris Robinson, who, as we saw, started the race from last place, or second to last, since he was actually on the grid. And it looks like he's actually had a spin into turn 4 there, which is pretty easy to do. As we've been saying, it's a pretty difficult track here. And of course, I imagine this is going to be a track that the drivers are a lot less familiar with in comparison to the tracks we've already seen so far this year. Monza, Interlagos, Montreal, obviously, those are very common and well-known racing circuits for anybody that follows the F1. But of course, Mid Ohio Sports Car Course, this is an American racing circuit mainly used for IndyCar. So I imagine the track knowledge of this mostly European grid is going to be limited compared to what we've seen previously this season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously a pretty famous track on this game, but as you mentioned, in real world racing, it's not one that you see too many races of, unless probably if you are American, of course. But we just saw Patrick White having a little look at Jonas Buhake for what I believe is 8th or 9th place. Can't remember exactly, but it's quite interesting to see that there is a pretty big gap starting to form ahead of Buhake. He has certainly dropped way out of the slipstream of the car ahead, and you can see he's currently 9th actually. So the top 8, you can see over there, there seems to be a bit of a gap behind 5th, and then there's 3 cars kind of in the middle, and then there's this group of 3 as well. So there are a few gaps forming around the field, and but obviously lots of battling to come, because everyone's still in a group, even though some of the groups are starting to become a bit smaller.
Yeah, Kptk definitely seems to be struggling without the slipstream, obviously. This is a track where the slipstream is not quite as important as, say, Monza or Montreal, as Patrick White having a look at the inside, almost contact between them. It looked like Kptk made a very late move to cover the inside, and Patrick White does seem that he is all fired up right now. He's got to be pretty upset about that move, actually. That was some pretty aggressive defending from Kptk there, and of course his teammate Harley Lewis is right behind him, that 3-car group, 2 of whom are with Carbon Racing, and here is that battle on lap 2 that we saw with Martinson and McLeod, and Martinson with the inside line, now the outside line, and as we were saying, this just kept going on and on. Martinson again with the outside line, able to carry a little bit more speed. He's just inching ahead of him ever so slightly as they make the run down towards turn 10, and then here is 11. Martinson gets that inside line, and that's what eventually put him under attack from Prado as well. Now Prado is actually starting to prey on Martinson as we're reaching the quarter distance of this race on lap 11 here. Prado is firmly focused on his target up ahead. Martinson is a little bit out of the slipstream of Robinson ahead, so he's probably going to be vulnerable here. Martinson not defending the inside line as they head into turn 4. He's going to try it around the outside. Prado braking very late, though. That was a very, very nice move from Prado, very much on the limit, nearly running off the circuit, but gets the job done.
Yeah, very good move. Obviously, Martin's not putting up too much of a defense, but Prado definitely leaving him no chance to go around the outside of the corner once he had made that dive up the inside. And it looks like it's a pretty good battle shaping up in the midfield there as well. Obviously, nice to see people all the way down the field fighting for positions hard, because obviously you score points all the way down to 20th place there, so all these positions matter as far as the championship is concerned. And as we see now, actually at the front, it looks like Kerry Nolden is starting to pull out a little bit of a gap. I do think Keeney is still within his slipstream, but not as strongly as Phil Reed in 3rd would be in his slipstream. And Kerry looks to have very strong pace there, actually, after obviously taking his first pole position of the season, after having a very troublesome first 3 races, and now looks to be building a little bit of a gap at the front, as his teammate could maybe even help him a bit here if he starts putting a lot of pressure on Govan Keeney for that 2nd place position. If these two start battling, that could make it even easier for Kerry to pull that gap. I'm obviously not saying it's easy as it is, but yeah, it's certainly looking good for these guys.
I'm wondering, it looked like Phil Reed was very close to Govan Keeney as they were coming out of turn 2 there, and it seemed to me that he was in a perfect position to make an overtake heading into turn 4, but he wasn't even able to pull alongside of him here. And I'm wondering, Fizzy, if you think maybe there is some sort of downforce difference between these two, possibly Phil Reed running a bit higher downforce, because like I said, it looked like Keeney was very vulnerable coming out of turn 2, but then there was just no move made.
Yeah, that could definitely be the case, because there's quite a few setup changes that can be made to these cars, of course. The front and the rear wings makes quite a bit of a difference to the downforce, of course, and the straight line speed. And yeah, as you said, it could well be the case that Phil Reed is running a higher downforce than Keeney here.
Gotcha, which obviously is going to make it very difficult, as we've been saying all race long. The primary overtaking location is at turn 4. Oh, and it looks like somebody has lost out big time there.
He's a left car, actually. That's Chris
Robinson.
Oh,
Chris Robinson. Yeah, he's trying to get out of the way of Daniel Berenson, who is a reserve driver, making his reappearance here at Mid Ohio. And we're having a look once again, actually, at Patrick White, 1 position down from his starting position. He lost out to Kptk at the start of this race, and he's looking to get that position back. And hopefully it'll be a little bit cleaner of an overtake attempt here, as he just shoots it around the outside at turn 4, and with the inside line for turn 5, it's a pretty easy move. It's a very short run down to turn 6, so obviously the extra exit speed that Kptk had there really was not going to allow him to come back at Patrick White at this point, at this stage in the lap. He really just needs to try and stick with him as best he can in order to possibly line up and overtake at turn 2 or turn 4. Of course, overtaking at turn 2 here will allow your rival to pick up the slipstream on the run down towards turn 4. Very similar to the Sepang International Circuit, for example, it's not always the best idea to overtake heading into the final corner there, because then your opponent may just be able to take you right back at turn 1. Same sort of deal here. The two major overtaking locations are kind of right next to each other, but actually, it looks like Puheka has... Oh, no, and that's a big spin for Patrick White! And I was just saying Puheka was dropping off of the back of him, and it was looking pretty good for Patrick White. And then he just dips a wheel in the grass coming out of turn 1. It's a very high-speed corner there, so any sort of touch of the grass there is going to be very, very troublesome. In the background there, Martinson looks like he's coming under attack from McLeod. Leon Robinson as well is on the attack here, and he's having a look at Hugo Prado. Prado defends the inside line as they're heading into turn 4. Leon Robinson's going to try around the outside. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen an overtake at the outside of turn 4, and it does look like he has stuck it and is going to earn himself the inside line for turn 5. Is Prado going to be one of the few able to stick it around the outside at turn 5, though? I'm not sure. We cut away as Patrick White, who is now down into 17th position, is coming under attack from a number of cars. He's got a couple of cars right ahead of him. That's Timu Valkyarvi just behind him, nearly running into the back of him. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah, great action here on whatever lap that was. I can't remember now. So replays come out of Patrick White with his spin, and you can see he just sticks his right front tire and right rear tire, I would imagine, on that grass. And it's so hard to keep control of the car when you're doing that with the throttle engaged. And here we can see a lovely slow-mo. And that is a disaster, you gotta say, because Patrick White, battling for 9th place, probably would have wanted to be even higher than that, but now he's down to 17th and fighting with these guys in the midfield. And here we go, he's already starting to make his way up the field again, though, making a move on Michael Mittner here for 16th place. And you've got to say Patrick White now the favourite to kind of make up some positions again in this battle, but obviously not where he would have wanted to be.
Yep, and Robinson currently ahead of Prado, getting that job done on the previous lap. But Prado coming right back at him with the identical move that he made just the lap previously. And it looked even easier, actually, for Prado that time. McLeod now with the inside line for turn 6 is trying to make the move on Martinson. Martinson with the better exit speed coming out of the corner, though. And it does look like he is going to hold on to that position. But McLeod clearly is all over the back of him and hounding him and looking to get by. McLeod showing some incredible pace in this race here today at Mid Ohio Sports Car Course. And Martinson, it does appear now with the defending from McLeod behind, or to McLeod behind, is dropping off ever so slightly to Robinson and Prado, and he's gone deep, and McLeod's got the inside line now through the penultimate corner. Now they're going to turn left, and Martinson is going to have the inside line. They're coming out of the final corner. It's a short run down to the first. It didn't even matter. McLeod takes that position as they finish lap 15 and start lap 16, and he's up ahead of Martinson, so that is very unfortunate for the AOR Team Red driver, of course. Here is now the leading Carbon racing car after the incident with Patrick White, who, by the way, was quite lucky to keep it out of the barrier, I should mention. It's unfortunate that he dropped down as many positions as he did, but of course, glad that he didn't get any damage. Harley Lewis now trying at the outside of turn 4. Gosh, that sounds like I feel like that's the 10th time we've said that already. The outside of turn 4. He's got the inside line for turn 5, and it looks like he could just about barely. Oh my gosh, it's so close between the two of them, and they're still going side by side now through turn 6, 7, and 8, and then coming towards turn 9. And Harley Lewis does not get in front of him, and so he's going to have to hang back and wait for another lap.
Man, incredible action on that particular part of the track. It's quite interesting, actually. Obviously, you mentioned about the two quite long straights, but we're seeing almost more action in those few corners after the straights. I guess when you're coming into turn 4, putting each other under pressure, then you're kind of putting the car... one of the cars will be offline coming through the next few corners, and that's obviously what we're seeing here with people going side by side. Quite interesting, actually. You mentioned Harley Lewis. He's actually gone into this race with 0 points in the championship, because he obviously did not finish the first 2 races of the season, and then he did not participate at Montreal. So even though he's now the leading Carbon racing car in the race, he's not actually scored any points, but at least now he's looking on course for some solid points there.
Yep, and of course, if anything happens with the cars up ahead, as we can see, there's some very tight battling going on in this battle for second place position. We've got Jamie Fluke. Just ahead of him is Justin Brunner. and just ahead of him is Phil Reed, and then Govan Keeney, the championship leader, currently leading this group as Kerry Nolden has started to break away from the rest of the field. Kerry appears to be having much better luck this race than he had in the previous races so far this season, as we're focusing on Justin Brunner at the moment, who hasn't really been making too many moves. We haven't really... he's going to actually dive in. Yeah, that's a very interesting move as he dives into the pits at the end of lap 17. So he is going to have to do a 27-lap stint. But obviously Brunner deciding here that maybe he is actually could be faster in clean air than with the heavier fuel compared to being stuck behind these guys. So that's a very interesting move from Justin Brunner, who is possibly a little bit desperate to try and regain control of this championship. Of course, hot off the heels of his Season 2 championship win, he's going to be anxious to try and get back into that form. So far, it's been Govan Keeney, pretty much, who has been dominating this season, aside from the fluke win last time out in Montreal. We knew that was going to happen. And Reed trying at the inside. Keeney defends at the outside. Again, inside line for turn 5 now. And Reed just about hung it around the outside, but he couldn't quite. And he does have to stay in that third place position. And is going to now have to contend with the dirty air. I would like, actually, what's the dirty air like at this circuit? Is it too bad or not too bad? How is it?
It's probably noticeable, but not to the extent that you'd see in Formula 1 cars, for example. But I mean, you do feel it when you're behind that close, at least behind someone. And obviously, with those final few corners of the lap being really like high-speed corners, it's exactly the type of corners that you do not want to be stuck behind someone. But we can see actually where Justin Brunner ended up here after he pitted, and he is in traffic. Quite a bit of traffic. Very crucial, yeah. So he's taken a gamble, of course, by going in that early, because not many people will have pitted at this point, and there's a big chance of getting stuck in a train that he doesn't really want to be in, because he surely has the pace on these guys, but now he'll lose himself some time by trying to pass them as well, and it remains to be seen, of course, how much of a challenge these guys will put up when he tries to get past. But I don't think Brunner would have wanted this amount of traffic when he decided to go in early.
Yeah, he must not have a race engineer. I'm not sure if any of the drivers have race engineers in this series, but unfortunately he did not predict the gap very well as far as his pit stop is concerned. And as you mentioned, he is in a significant amount of traffic here, and it does look like he's going to grab the inside line, though, as they're heading. He's on the inside of no, I'm sorry, that's not Leanne Robinson. I do apologize. That's Renee Osterkamp, and he does make that move very easy. Actually, I think that's one of the few moves where we've actually seen the maneuver completed at the exit of turn 4 and not continued into turn 5. Here we have a replay between Puheka and Lewis. Puheka and this was what we saw earlier when Lewis was trying to get by Puheka, and just about nearly did, but Puheka fighting back tooth and nail on the Carbon Racing driver, and great shots there as well. I love the high up shots we were getting there. Harley Lewis pitting from 9th position. He also with a very early pit stop. He is now stuck behind Neil Lukens, the second AOR red car in this race at the moment, with Martinson, of course, leading. And actually, Lukens is going to defend the inside line. Obviously, these are not teammates. These guys are against each other, maybe not in the Drivers' Championship, but certainly in the Constructors' Championship. And he's coming back at him once again. The battling continues through turns 5 and through turn 6. Neil Lukens, though, does appear to have held him off for now. But with the speed that Lewis is showing, I can only... as Lukens has gone very wide through turn 9 there, and that's going to cause him to lose out to Harley Lewis and another car as well. Who is that?
I believe that is Marco Bendo, who is... well, it looks like he was going to pass him, but then he backed out. So... Luke is going very... I thought it was going to slide there, but he's actually taking a really awkward line to go into the pit lane instead. Or maybe he did go into the pit lane because he almost lost the car, I don't know. But here comes Martins actually, who was behind his team at this point, and Patrick White as well, so they must have pitted as well at this early stage, as there's a car coming out of the pit lane, and I believe that is Lee Robinson, who's coming out side by side pretty much with Martinson. And Martinson just about getting himself ahead, but Robinson's slotting in between Martinson and Patrick White. So, yeah, it's this stage of the race, it's a bit hard to know where people actually are in the race, because I'm not sure what position these guys are actually battling for now, but it's not that far up, as we see an overtake from lap 20 with Brunner passing Mittner, obviously him trying to make his way back through the field. It looks like he's got that move done around the outside of turn 4, got a good run on the straight with a slipstream, and I got that move done. But yeah, like I said, there's a pretty big pit window here, so because the fuel consumption isn't as high as you've seen on some of the previous races, so the pit window probably lasts for about 11-12 laps, I'd say. So you know, you can pit quite a lot earlier than some of the guys who decide to pit towards the ends of the window.
Yep, and Leon Robinson still behind Martinson. Whoa!
Oh.
And that's a diving maneuver. That was incredible stuff from Patrick.
Oh, no!
There's contact between them, actually, as Leon Robinson looks like he has some front wing damage, possibly some suspension damage as well.
That doesn't look good.
Let's pay attention and see what happens as he's going through. It's a very high-speed corner at turn 9, and he is moving very slowly, and you can see his wheel is not pointing straight, so that is definitely unfortunate. And here is that switchback. He just leaves the door open ever so slightly, and Patrick White just shoots up the inside at turn 5. Incredible stuff there. And then really, I think that may have been a little bit aggressive on Patrick White's side of things. Obviously, he knows that Robinson is still alongside him. You can see, really, there wasn't anything Robinson could do there. Patrick White just cuts across him. Like I said, he's got the aerodynamic damage to the front left-hand side of his wing, and also I think some mechanical damage as well. Jamie Fluke now into the pits, and I believe we are reaching the closing stages of the pit window. The pit window should be closing in a couple laps' time now, and that is Justin Brunner. Actually, he's side by side with Jamie Fluke on the run down towards turn 2. Justin Brunner should have been able to carry more speed coming out of turn 1 than Fluke could have coming out of the pit lane, though, and Brunner does move ahead of Jamie Fluke. Just barely, though, but correct me if I'm wrong, Brunner was already ahead of Fluke, so obviously that early pit stop for Justin Brunner has not helped him very much at all.
No, that is very interesting, actually, because we saw Brunner stuck in traffic, or I don't know how stuck he eventually ended up getting, because he seemed to be getting his overtakes done pretty straightforward, but he ends up, at least compared to Jamie Fluke, pretty much where he was before he pitted. So he hasn't really paid off, but he hasn't lost him anything either by pitting early. As we now have Phil Reed into the pits from 3rd. I believe his teammate Kerry Nolan is still going out in the lead, and I believe Govin Keeney is still out as well. So it'll be interesting to see where Reed comes out relative to these two, who's now coming towards the end of the lap here.
Yep, these guys are in a net 4th and 5th position as it stands right now, but as you mentioned, that could change possibly here with Phil Reed pitting for the AOR Team Blue, and they're coming around through the final corner now. Justin Brunner is ahead of Jamie Fluke as it stands right now, and there is the AOR Blue car coming out of the pits, and he's got Evan Imre actually just to the side of him actually, and I hope that's not going to be an issue. Michael Mittner as well coming out of the pits, and Phil Reed is comfortably ahead of these cars, and in fact, he's got Evan Imre in between himself and Justin Brunner, so it's looking pretty good for Phil Reed at the moment. It's looking pretty good for both of the AOR Blue cars. Might be seeing a double podium here. I knock on wood. I don't want to jinx them here, but it's looking pretty darn good. And this is Govin Keeney, currently running in 2nd position, and he has yet to make his stop. So he's going to be looking to make his stop pretty soon here, possibly at the end of this lap here on lap 27. And he's going through the final few corners here, and they tend to run out wide. There he goes. He runs out wide, goes into the pit lane. So Keeney into the pits, very aggressive. You could see him very, very aggressive coming into the pit lane there. And, of course, on that limiter now, heading down towards his box. And as well, Takinen, Godin, and Berenson all into the pits as well. So this definitely is the closing stages of the race here. And Berenson is running just behind one of the other cars that's Godin, just ahead of him. And this is a battle for 6th position. These guys are sort of in the net 6th, 7th, and 8th positions. And I wonder if we're going to see them come out maybe a little bit closer to that battle for 5th position. And actually, there is Phil Reed coming around the outside of turn 1. He's just ahead of Godin, actually. So game on. This is very close. In fact, Godin is ahead of Brunner.
That's Keeney, actually.
Oh, that's
obviously.
Keeney. I
yeah,
apologize.
Godin was in that battle for 6th back there, but Reed has actually jumped Keeney through the pit stops, because I'm pretty sure he was in 3rd, obviously, before the pit stops, with the Keeney in 2nd, and now I believe Reed is actually in the net 3rd, with obviously Kerry still out in front, coming to what's end of the lap now, and surely he'll be coming in the pits, because there can't be much fuel left in that tank at this point, especially as he's been running by himself out in front, obviously not getting any slipstream to help him with the fuel consumption, and he does indeed go into the pits. So it'll be interesting to see what the gap is from him and down to these guys here, who are all really close together still. It's quite cool to see actually that the pit stops, apart from the position change between Reed and Keeney, it hasn't really made too much of a difference, to be honest, even though these guys are pitted at very different laps. So the battle is still very much on for second between at least 4 people there.
Yep, very, very true. And there goes Kerry Nolden out of his pit box, and it does look like he is comfortably ahead of the rest of the field. Again, I really don't want to jinx him, but gosh, you got to say, I mean, that picture there says it all. Just look how lonely of a race Kerry Nolden is having. The enormous gap back to his teammate Phil Reed. Again, though, it is an AOR Blue 1-2 as it was earlier in the race, but again, with Keeney, Brunner, and Fluke just behind him, it's going to be very difficult here for Phil Reed as we're riding on board with Govan Keeney currently in the final podium position in 3rd place as we're coming toward the later stages of this race. Certainly the pit stops have completed, so obviously any overtake here is for position. Keeney with the inside line. Phil Reed is going to try and hang it around the outside. He just about does. He's going to get the inside line, of course, for turn 5. He runs out a little bit wide even there. Seems like Phil Reed actually protecting against any sort of dive bombs from Keeney as they were heading down the hill into turn 6 there. And look how close the 4 of them are. Justin Brunner less than a car length away from the gearbox of Govan Keeney. And here we're going to see a replay of an incident with Patrick White running right off the circuit into the gravel. And does he make contact with the tire barrier? I think he might have, actually. He's running in the dirty air here. Oh, and he just dips a wheel in the grass under braking for turn 9 and just misses the tire barrier by the smallest of margins. So once again, the Carbon Racing car avoiding serious damage in the barrier, but once again, the Carbon Racing car going off the circuit. So we rejoin with this battle for 2nd place, which is still raging on. And in fact, is that 6th place I see possibly joining in? It looks like a Glacier car. It is, in fact,
come a lot closer to this battle. He was obviously in that group with Godin and Berenson, but they seem to actually spread out now, with Godin kind of in 7th, a little bit by himself, and Berenson a little bit further back. But Takkanen, well and truly, seems to join this battle now, so it's now a 5-way train for 2nd place, headed by Reed, who might again be put under pressure from Keeney here. This time he defends the inside line, and like the previous lap, Keeney looks at much better straight line speed towards the end of the straight there, tries to hold it around the outside, they come so close! Man, I can't believe I didn't touch wheels there. That's Keeney now has the inside for this corner, but Reed holds it around the outside again. Now the inside for this, ooh, Keeney almost looks like he was chopping him off a little bit there. Reed had to back out, and Keeney is taking 2nd place. And obviously all of this battling is surely what has allowed Takkanen to catch up, because Keeney and Reed battling at the head of this train is obviously definitely not speeding them up at all.
Yep, as we are seeing McLeod and Martinson going side by side once again, this is another one of those battles that's just been raging on all race long. The 2 of them just will not give up. Martinson now with the inside line as they head into turn 6, but McLeod now, of course, is going to get the better exit coming out of the corner. He's very, very close behind him. Oh, man, very, very close behind him as we are approaching the 3/4 distance of this race now as we rejoin this battle for 2nd position. You can see Phil Reed is he's in a very difficult position now, is Phil Reed. He's got to defend from Justin Brunner behind for the sake of his team, but of course he needs to attack Govan Keeney ahead as well for his own sake and nobody else's. And there is Justin Brunner with the number 1 on his car there. Patrick White now in, well, he's quite a ways down the order there. Oh, he's nearly making contact with Rene Osterkamp as they're going to go side by side into turn 1. We talked about before how the inside line might not necessarily be the faster way through that corner, but he does make it work and moves up ahead of Osterkamp. And now we've got Timo Valkjärvi as well, making a move on Robert Plumley as they're coming to the into turn 2 now, down the hill for the exit of the corner. Plumley with a little bit better of an exit. Valkjärvi with the inside line as they're going to come into turn 4, but Plumley with that better exit speed is able to move ahead of him. Valkjärvi, though, fighting back with that inside line, is actually able to close up a little bit. Plumley might also be running a little bit higher downforce versus some of the other cars, and Valkjärvi to the inside and now to the outside for turn 5. It looks like he's got it done. Yes, he does. And it looks like Patrick White as well might be looking to make the overtake on Robert Plumley here with that battling between Plumley and Valkjärvi. I think White is seeing a prime opportunity here to grab another position.
Absolutely. I mean, as we mentioned before, that's Plumley into the barrier. Oh, that is not what he wanted after having put up a great fight to defend against Teemu Valkeavi, and that is not what he deserved after that. But Plumley surely has to go in the pits for repairs of that, as we again go back to the battle for second, with Reed now looking to the outside of Keeney, what he did on the last lap. And here we go, it's going to be so close. Can Reed do Patrick White and dive with the inside of turn 5 somehow? But it doesn't look like he can, and Keeney stays ahead unless Murray can get a very, very good exit, but he comes so close to touching his tire there. And man, I'm glad he backed out, because that could have been easily some suspension damage. These cars, of course, are very vulnerable to suspension damage with this being open wheel, and it's easily a long repair time in the pit stop just for some slight contact on the tires.
Yep. And there is the replay of Plumley just going off the circuit, getting that oversteer coming out of turn 9. That is Thunder Valley as he thunders into the barrier there, and Plumley's going to be very upset there. Of course, obviously, it's a bit worse if you crash your car in the after the pit stop phases, as Justin Brunner actually having a look for the first time really that we've seen. Oh, and it's very, very close between them as they're coming out of turn 2, and it does look like that Phil Reed's going to hang on to that position for right now, but Justin Brunner here in the later stages of this race is getting very racy here. He's looking to possibly make an overtake as we're into turn 4. No, he lifts off, and he's not going to... Oh, and under braking, though, he closes right up under Reed there. And Fluke as well. He might actually be coming at Brunner. This is very, very tense stuff with only 7 laps remaining in this race. After they complete this one, you can kind of see the desperation starting to boil over in these drivers as they're trying to, because obviously it's quite a big points difference between getting 5th and getting 2nd. This is not for anything small. This actually is for something a little bit smaller, as Mittner and Johansson are battling for 13th place. Mittner defending the inside line, heading into turn 4, the very, very popular overtaking location all race long. Johansson stays around the outside, though, gets the inside line for turn 5. Mittner does a great job, actually, of fighting around the outside of turn 5. Patrick White flying up on the back of these guys, and it looks like Mittner is a little bit vulnerable right now, but no, Mittner's actually attacking Johansson. Oh my gosh, so close. It looked like he was going to try and make a dive. Turn 9 is really not an overtaking location whatsoever, as they're making the short run down towards turn 10. That was 10. This is 11 now, and White actually dropping off the back a little bit. It seemed like he was maybe in a gear too high as he dropped down a gear. And having a look now at Marco Bendau, actually. And he's got, who's that just in front of him? Oh, it doesn't matter. He's hit the barrier. And I think that might be the end of his day, possibly, as he comes to a dead stop on the start-finish straight there.
As I mentioned about the tires, he hit both of his tires in the wall there, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be some serious damage to his car, as Patrick White tries to move up the inside of turn 1, but Mittner holds it around the outside. He carries great speed around the corner, and now defends into turn 2, actually. You can see White is looking very feisty. He's made a few mistakes this race, but he really wants to make positions back up. It is run a little bit too wide here, I think. Mittner still holding on from him, and now Teemu wants in on the action as well. Could be a 3 wide area if these guys can pull closer with Mittner's slipstream. It's really hard to be Mittner in this position, actually. See, he's getting very little slipstream, and he's defending from Teemu very close. Kind of blocked him off a little bit maybe, but Patrick White has been allowed to go around the outside of turn 4, and now it's the inside of turn 5, and White can move himself up unless Mittner is fighting back. Man, we've seen this so many times, and Patrick White getting very close to Mittner. He obviously chopped Robinson off a bit there, that corner earlier in the race, but they avoid contact this time. But White gets the position, and this, man, incredible battling in the midfield, up and down the field there.
I thought for a moment there that Valkeavi was about to do something stupid, but he did not do anything stupid. He thought better of it and decided to back out, as he was just having just a little look, sort of like Brunner just did right there, actually, on Keeney, nearly going 3 wide. Reed's going to have the outside line on Keeney. Can he take that second place position back? It looks like he's got the advantage now, and in fact, Brunner is now going to start attacking Keeney. No, there's no way that he could do that, but Keeney very slow coming out of turn 6 now, and he might actually be coming under attack from Justin Brunner very shortly here. So once again, it is a AOR Blue 1-2 as Phil Reed takes the position back from Govan Keeney. Incredible racing here. And as we were mentioning before, that is Takinen who has rejoined, and it does look like some other cars, possibly Godin as well. Yeah, that is Godin, not too far behind Takinen. So this might be an actual 6-way battle for second place in the closing stages of this race here. And here is a replay of Teemu Valkjärvi making a move on Michael Mittner. It does look like Patrick White kind of broke away after getting by Mittner there, and Osterkamp in the background there. Teemu just flies by him. Look at the extra straight line speed, and he's got the job done as they turn into the corner. That must have been one of the easier overtakes we've seen all weekend long.
Yeah, might well be running low down for Sam Mittner there, because we saw obviously on the previous time we saw them as well, the team catching up rapidly on the straight. You see a slightly blinking car over there. I believe that was Saltalamacca actually, because Plumley crashed earlier on. So here we go, Patrick White putting Fredrik Johansson under pressure, and he's closing up extremely fast on the straight as well, just like Teemu did in the other battle. And White up the inside. Johansson looks like he was thinking about defending, but doesn't do it too hard, and White gets that position done at turn 5. So White doesn't look like there's too many cars ahead of him at this point. So
no.
I'm not sure. Is this 14th place? It might feel like it might be
13th, something
13th,
like that.
So 13th. So that might have to be what Patrick White has to settle for. I was actually on the penultimate lap of the race already.
Yeah, unbelievably. I mean, it's flown by here, and it's looking pretty good for Phil Reed at the moment, as he's got a pretty healthy gap to Govan Keeney. And in fact, that is the straights are really where Phil Reed has been suffering all race along. But what he really needs now is for Brunner to get involved in this mix. For much of this race, it's been just trading back and forth between Reed and Keeney. But Brunner needs to get involved. As you mentioned, this is the penultimate lap of the race. Fluke, it appears, is dropping back a little bit, so he may be coming under attack from Takinen. And if they start battling, then Godin as well might join in, as we could see him there just in the background, not too far from Takinen. In fact, Godin may be within slipstream range here as we're getting very close to the end of the lap. Kerry Nolden has already crossed the line to start his final lap. White flag for Kerry Nolden already here. We're on board with Justin Brunner, who takes a very different line actually from Keeney there. Loses out a little bit at the exit of the corner, possibly because of the dirty air, as we're heading into turn 1 for the final time this race. And it looks like a pretty good turn 1 for Justin Brunner, but not good enough. He doesn't really close in on Keeney. And actually, Reed is going to have to defend from Keeney now, I think. Keeney is much closer this lap than he was previously as he dives up the inside. It doesn't look like, no, they're not side by side anymore. Phil Reed is holding on to that position as best as he can. Keeney is very close behind him, though. And it doesn't look like Justin Brunner is going to be able to mount any sort of attack here. So unless we get something really fancy here from Keeney, this might be their finishing positions. And he actually switches to the inside. That's a very daring move from Govan Keeney. And there's been contact between them. Terrible scenes here on the final lap of this race, after battling the entire 43 laps together for that second place position. Both of them have been taken out, and they're going to struggle now to finish in the top 10 possibly. Kerry Nolden, coming through the final couple of corners now, is going to get his first win of the season. The Season 1 champion gets a return to form here at Mid Ohio Sports Car Course. You can see he is quite happy with what was essentially a very boring race for him. All he did was pump in fast lap after fast lap, and it's worked out very well for him. The Season 2 champion, Justin Brunner, comes home in second position after doing what appeared to be the smart thing and just sitting back and waiting for the other two guys to take each other out. Jamie Fluke gets the final podium position, and Phil Reed comes home in 6th position behind Govan Keeney in 5th position. There's still racing going on. This is the battle for 11th position. Martinson still trying to defend from McLeod. It's been so close between these two guys all race long. Not much to go, though, in this race. It does look like Martinson is going to hold him off for the final stages. Unbelievable finish to this race. What controversy. And it looks like Martinson moves to the inside. McLeod was just about thinking of possibly taking that position right at the end. Patrick White, with his couple of off-track moments, obviously, I think he'll be happy to get the points that he gets in 13th position. It was obviously a pretty tough day for the Carbon Racing guys, specifically for Patrick White there. And there is Nolden, looking like a man who just won a race, and I'm sure he's got to be happy about that. Go ahead, talk us through this replay here, Fizzy.
Yeah, here we go. Obviously, Phil getting a run on Reed, but he's not really alongside until the braking zone, and he dives up into a very tiny space and makes contact, can't slow it down, and that looked to me to be a pretty desperate move, to be honest. Contact takes them both, well, not out, but down several places, and here we go. We can see Reed clearly leaving very little room on the inside to defend, and then Keeney just dives up the inside, and it's unfortunate to see, of course, after all the battling these guys have done. You can see here how little room there was, and he just couldn't get it slowed down. I mean, if you got to make a move like that work, you got to get the braking absolutely spot on, and to do that,
yep,
you got to brake. I mean, probably earlier than Keeney did, because he couldn't get it slowed down for the apex. So very unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm not sure he made the right choice there. I think going to the outside was the safe option, and I think he easily could have taken the position around the outside. I do apologize, by the way. Keeney finished in 8th. That was Godin in 5th. I do mix up the teammates.
With a penalty.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So with the 10-second penalty, so he would have been in 7th. So he only lost 1 position as a result of that 10-second penalty, but obviously losing out on a number of positions as a result of that accident. As we mentioned, Nolden wins ahead of Brunner and Fluke with the final podium positions. Takinen in 4th, and Godin with a very, very well-earned 5th position. Phil Reed in 6th. So it's still a pretty good race for AOR Blue, but you know, you got to be thinking what could have been. I mean, it was a flawless race for Kerry Nolden, though. I mean, he did the Grand Slam. He got pole position, fastest lap, and the race win, taking home 33 points total. Martinson finishing in 11th and picking up a bonus point as well, so 11 points for his 11th place finish. Patrick White picking up 8 points after all of the issues that he had. Timo Valkjärvi down in 15th after some really nice racing, though. You have to say, Valkjärvi always has great racecraft. He just really seemed to be lacking the lap pace here today, as he was 61 seconds behind the leader, Kerry Nolden, although pretty much everyone was was about that distance behind Kerry Nolden. Daniel Baxter, Neil Lukens, Imre, Leister, Satalamakia, all finishing 1 lap down and failing to score any points, unfortunately. As we mentioned earlier in the race, it was a pretty big race with a lot of people, 29 drivers in total, as we can see there, and so very difficult to score points here. In the Drivers' Championship, Keeney still leading, but only by 2 points now to Jamie Fluke, 77-75. Justin Brunner as well, moving up ahead of Takinen into 3rd place on 72 points. So only 5 points separating the top 3 drivers, which is absolutely incredible. And Takinen is only 2 points behind him. So 7 points in the top 4 drivers. Fantastic stuff. Martinson's in 6th position. Huheka moves up into 7th. Nolden moves up into 8th with his race win, now sitting on 46 points. But of course, he's actually tied with Godin, who has attended all but 1 of the races so far. Timo Valkjärvi dropping down a few positions. Of course, Valkjärvi got that 4th place finish in Montreal last time out, which was a very well-fought battle. But unfortunately, in scoring in the lower half of the points here today at Mid Ohio, so he is going to be losing out ever so slightly in the championship. Osterkamp also moving up. Daniel Berenson in only his 2nd race this season, I believe, moving up as well into 17th position, and Frederick Johansson of Team Tortoise moving up into 20th position with 17 points. So it's very tight, obviously, now at the front of the field. The battle for the championship, very, very close between all these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's close battles up and down the field in the standings, as he usually is, really, but very closer than it usually is, actually, up the front, with the 7 points between the top 4. That is insane. As we now see the rest of the standings there, with Mittner in 21st, staying put. Harley Lewis moving up to 23rd after his good finish there. And then you can see the guys near the bottom of the standings with 0 points. Neil Lukens for the 2nd AOR there in there, moving up a few positions just by turning up today. And then we have the Team Championship, Glacier Racing retaining the lead. Team AOR Blue, though, with a very solid race, moving up to 2nd place with Kerry's win. Unfortunately not a 1-2, which it could have been if not for the last lap incident between Reed and Keeney. And they obviously moved the team players down to 3rd. Red Evolution GP of Jamie Fluke in 4th still, with Vortex in 5th. Carbon up to 6th, and Team Red moving down to 7th. Team Tortoise in 8th, Willows GP in 9th, and Minadan in 10th. So a close battling in the teams as well, to be honest, but not quite as close as in the Drivers' Championship.
Yep, and there's ACR down in 11th. Obviously, they were much higher up last season in the team's championship. So I'm expecting that they're going to be looking to improve their results. Kptk Racing, tough race today, obviously, for them. Currently tied for 12th position. But Bruno Dometer in 12th for TDT Racing. He's got 26 points to Kptk's entire team. Next time out, it is going to be Road America, which, as an American, is one of my favorite circuits in America. They really just don't make circuits like this in America enough, and I'm really excited for that one. I think it might even be a better race than it was here today at Mid Ohio, which is saying quite a bit. I think it's a bit of a longer lap, longer straights, more overtaking locations. Should be a lot of fun. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining me for the commentary, Fizzy.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was great fun, another fantastic race here, and well, we had 27 finishes in the race, and I'm pretty sure that's a record, so happy to be able to commentate, and yeah, I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.